5 years, that's how long Steve was in this relationship with a young lady in her 20s.
So here's a question I guess I would have. You mentioned if it's publicly known, does it change if it's a private sin? If a pastor has disqualified himself and no one knows about it. And in the case of Steve Lawson, I know that this was an ongoing thing. This was a relationship that had developed over the course of years with
I think about 5 years is what I understand.
Yeah, and I've had multiple people reach out to me with the story. It's making its way out there, and I know it's frustrating for a lot of the people who respect Steve Lawson and feel like he's just been erased and they don't have any explanation. But the thumbnail is that this was a relationship that developed over the course of years with a woman who was in her 20s, and it was a compromising relationship. And Steve Lawson did not come forward of his own accord. He was essentially, it was found out, and the father of this young lady ended up going to the elders and telling them this is what's going on. And that was on Tuesday, and then by Thursday morning, everything's gone from a number of different ministry websites.
Right.
And so that's, and I don't know if I want to get any more details than that. I think that's probably enough, unless you want to say more. But that's a private thing. No one knew about it until the father of this young lady came forward.
So welcome back to Bible Geek Uncensored, or as I like to call us, Bible Geek Squad. I am devastated at what I just heard. And a lot of you guys told me, and wow. Steve Lawson, as I mentioned in the beginning, was involved with a young lady in her 20s for 5 years in an adulterous relationship. 5 years. And I'm over here saying, well, we don't know. We got to cut him some slack. We got to do this. We got to show him grace. We got to, come on, pray for him. You know how dumb I feel right now? Do you know how dumb I feel right now? This was not a one and done accidental type of sin. I fell short. My goodness. Nah, man, for 5 years he sat in his office. He stood behind a pulpit and he preached. He preached. And all the while being with a young lady, knowing he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he didn't care. It was brought out that the only reason Steve confessed his sin wasn't because of the conviction from the Spirit of God that resided in him. No, it was because the young lady's father was not going to allow this young lady to waste her 20s in an inappropriate relationship. So Steve had an option. Steve had the option of either you say it or I say it. Wow. He was forced to say it. And I'm over here thinking, no, he brought it out of his own heart. Somebody had sent me a link that about 4 years ago, he belittled another pastor, another preacher that had committed adultery. He belittled him. He made a spectacle out of him in front of different other people. What triggers me right now is the fact that this was 4 years ago. The relationship that he started with this young lady in her 20s was 5 years ago. I don't know if you guys got to listen to his very last sermon. His very last sermon at the church that he was pastoring. In the middle of that sermon, he made a reference that we should never judge a preacher, a man of God, for a small hiccup that they do. No, you must judge the entire ministry.
And you should not judge a man by his 1 week moment. You need to look at the whole body of his work. You need to look at his whole message. You need to look at his whole ministry. And don't judge him on one hiccup that happens.
The information that we have now, I come to understand that what this guy was trying to do was manipulate the congregation so that when things would come out, because I believe that it was already in the talks. You know, he had already spoken to that young lady's father. The father approached him and told him, hey, you either confess it or I'm going to bring it out. So that's your option. So I figured that him having that information, he found a way to sneak that into his sermon that Sunday because he was very well aware of what he was going to be doing that very week, which happened last Tuesday. And by Thursday, everything came out. What I stop and think is he said that we shouldn't judge a preacher, a man of God, for a small hiccup. This is 5 years. This is not a small hiccup. It's not like you went to the bar, had a couple of beers, took a woman home, slept with her, woke up the next day saying, oh my gosh, what did I do? No, this is 5 years. 5 years you sat in your office writing sermons. 5 years you stood behind a pulpit ripping other people apart. 5 years you had that affair. Keep the family in prayer. Keep his wife in prayer, his children in prayer. And, well, he's getting what he deserves, to be honest with you guys. So that's the latest update that I found from Steve and the whole adultery situation. Keep the family in prayer and keep the church in prayer. All right? God bless you guys.